The night was cold, and the rain poured heavily on the streets. Mark had just finished a long shift at the repair shop, fixing old machinery and broken equipment. He was exhausted, ready to go home, eat something simple, and sleep. His apartment was small, nothing fancy, but it was his space, quiet and peaceful. As he walked up the stairs to his apartment, he noticed something strange. A figure was standing near his door, completely still. The hallway light flickered, making it hard to see clearly. Mark hesitated. Was it a lost person? A thief? Or something worse? He took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Hey, do you need something?" he asked cautiously. The figure turned its head slowly. It was a woman, but not human. Her deep blue skin shimmered under the dim light, and her glowing silver eyes fixed on him. She wore a torn cloak, and her long dark hair was wet from the rain. Her face was beautiful, but filled with exhaustion and desperation. "Please," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Let me stay in your home, just for tonight. I have nowhere else to go." Mark blinked in confusion. An alien. Here. He had heard of alien species visiting Earth before, but they were rare. Most lived in high-tech cities, far from humans. What was she doing here, alone and desperate? "Who are you?" he asked, still wary. She hesitated before answering. "My name is T. Larry. I will explain everything. But first, please, I need shelter." Mark thought for a moment. He wasn't sure if he could trust her, but she looked like she was in real trouble. He glanced around the hallway. If someone saw her standing here, she could get arrested or worse. "All right," he sighed. "Come inside before someone sees you." T. Larry nodded quickly and stepped inside. As soon as the door closed behind her, she let out a deep breath, as if she had been holding it for hours. She shivered slightly, still wet from the rain. Mark grabbed a towel and handed it to her. "Here, dry yourself." She took the towel with a small nod of thanks and began wiping the rain off her face and arms. Now that he could see her clearly, he noticed something odd. Her skin didn't just look smooth, it absorbed light strangely, almost as if it wasn't completely solid. "All right," Mark said, crossing his arms. "I let you in. Now tell me, who are you, and why are you outside my door?" T. Larry lowered the towel and looked at him with serious eyes. "I am being hunted," she said. "I escaped from those who want to capture me. If they find me, they will take me away, and I will never be free again." Mark frowned. "Hunted? By who?" She hesitated again, as if choosing her words carefully. "The enforcers of the Galactic Dominion. They rule over many planets, including my own. But I did something they did not like. So now, they want me gone." Mark exhaled sharply. Great. This wasn't just some lost traveler. This was big trouble. If the Galactic Dominion was after her, then that meant serious danger. "You're telling me that an intergalactic government is hunting you, and you want to hide here?" He shook his head. "You realize how dangerous that is, right?" "I do," T. Larry said quietly. "But I had no choice. I had to run. I had to come here." She looked at him with a strange intensity. "Because only a human can help me." Mark raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" She took a deep breath, as if deciding whether to reveal something important. "I have something that no human woman can offer, something that could change everything for you." Mark stiffened. That sentence sounded suspicious. "What exactly are you talking about?" T. Larry shook her head. "I cannot explain now. But if you let me stay, I will prove it to you." Mark ran a hand through his hair. This was insane. He was just a regular guy trying to live a quiet life. And now an alien fugitive was sitting in his apartment, asking for help against some powerful intergalactic government. But as he looked at her, he saw real fear in her eyes. She wasn't lying. She was truly desperate. "Fine," he finally said. "You can stay for tonight. But in the morning, I need more answers." Hilary nodded, relief washing over her face. Thank you, Mark. You won't regret this. Mark wasn't so sure about that, but something told him that his life had just taken a turn he could never have expected. As he locked the door, outside, in the dark sky, a small, unmarked spacecraft hovered silently, scanning the city below. Someone was looking for Hilary, and they were getting closer. Mark barely got any sleep that night. Even after Hilary settled on the couch, wrapped in an old blanket, his mind raced with questions. Who was she really? What exactly had she done to make the Galactic Dominion hunt her? And what did she mean when she said she could give him something no human woman could? He sat up on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He had always lived a simple life, fixing machines, paying bills, and keeping to himself. Now, suddenly, he had a fugitive alien in his apartment. As the first light of morning crept through the windows, Mark got up and walked into the small living room. Hilary was awake, sitting stiffly on the couch, her glowing silver eyes alert. "You didn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't need much sleep. My kind can rest in short cycles." Mark grabbed a cup of coffee and took a sip before sitting across from her. "All right, it's morning. Time for answers." Hilary hesitated, then nodded. "I understand." She took a deep breath and leaned forward. "I was born on a planet called Velmara, under the control of the Galactic Dominion. My people, the Velmari, are not warriors. We are peaceful, but we have abilities that make us valuable." Mark narrowed his eyes. "Abilities." She lifted her hand, and for a moment, the air around it shimmered. It was like her skin became semi-transparent, revealing a strange, pulsating energy underneath. Mark tensed, watching in fascination. "I can change my body," she said. "Not just my shape, but my energy, my presence. The Dominion uses my kind for special purposes. Some of us become spies. Others are forced into roles that serve their leaders." Mark could tell she was hiding something, but he didn't press her yet. "So what did you do that made them hunt you?" Hilary's expression darkened. "I refused to obey." She clenched her fists. "The Dominion wanted me to use my abilities for something terrible, something that would hurt many innocent people. I couldn't do it, so I ran." Mark exhaled slowly. Now it made sense. She was an escaped asset, and the Dominion didn't want her loose. If they caught her, they wouldn't just bring her back. They'd make sure she never escaped again. "And you came to Earth because—" Hilary looked at him, her silver eyes filled with something he couldn't quite read. "Because I needed someone I could trust. Someone strong enough to help me. Someone human." Mark frowned. "That doesn't explain why you picked me specifically." She hesitated, then stood up. "Because of what I can give you." Mark tensed. "You keep saying that. What does it mean?" Hilary stepped closer. "The Dominion wants to control my kind because of our unique ability. We can bond with others in ways no other species can." "Bond," Mark repeated. She nodded. "Not just physically. When a Velmari bonds with someone, it connects them on a deep level. Our energy merges, and our partner gains advantages." Mark raised an eyebrow. "What kind of advantages?" Hilary exhaled. "Stronger senses, faster reflexes, even a heightened mental connection. If I bond with you, you'll be more than human." Mark stared at her. Was she serious? Could she actually make him stronger? The idea sounded impossible, but then again, so did everything about this situation. Hilary watched his reaction carefully. "The Dominion wants to control this power, but if I choose to give it freely, I can change someone's fate." Mark rubbed his face. "This is insane. I'm just a mechanic. I don't need superhuman abilities." Hilary tilted her head. "Perhaps not. But if you help me, you will need them." A cold feeling settled in Mark's gut. "What do you mean?" Hilary walked to the window and pulled the curtain slightly. Her expression tightened. "They're here." Mark rushed to her side. Outside, on the street below, A black, unmarked vehicle had stopped. Two figures in dark armor stepped out, scanning the area. "The Dominion's hunters," T. Larry whispered. "They found me." Mark's heart pounded. He had let her in his home, and now he was involved in something way bigger than himself. He turned to T. Larry. "What do we do?" She looked at him seriously. "If you want to survive, you have to trust me." Mark took a deep breath. He had a choice: hand her over and stay safe, or help her and face an unknown danger. But deep down, he already knew his answer. "All right," he said. "Tell me what I need to do." Mark's hands clenched into fists as he stared out the window. The black vehicle had parked across the street, and two armored figures were scanning the area. Their helmets covered their faces, but Mark didn't need to see their expressions to know they were dangerous. "T. Larry," he whispered, stepping back. "What do they want?" "They want me," she said calmly, though her glowing silver eyes flickered with worry. "And if they know I'm here, they won't stop until they search this place." Mark's heart pounded. His whole life, he had avoided trouble. He paid his bills on time, kept his head down, and never picked fights. But now trouble had come knocking, and he had to decide: help T. Larry or save himself. "Do they know I'm helping you?" he asked. T. Larry shook her head. "Not yet, but if they catch me here, they'll assume you're involved." Mark muttered a curse. "Great, so what do we do?" T. Larry stepped closer. "If we leave now, we can escape before they come inside." Mark looked at the door, then back at her. "Leave? Just like that? I have a job, a life." She placed a hand on his wrist. Her touch was strangely warm, and for a moment, a calming sensation spread through him. "If they take me, you'll never see me again," she said softly. "And they won't just leave you alone. You've seen too much." Mark closed his eyes, inhaling deeply. He knew she was right. With a sharp nod, he grabbed his jacket. "All right, but where do we go?" T. Larry's eyes flickered with relief. "Somewhere they won't expect." "Do you have a vehicle?" Mark nodded. "My old truck is in the alley behind the building." "Then we go there," she said. They moved quickly. Mark peeked out the door, checking the hallway. It was empty. He motioned for T. Larry to follow, and they slipped out of the apartment, keeping low. As they crept down the stairs, Mark's pulse hammered in his ears. If those armored goons caught them, he had no doubt things would get ugly. They reached the alley door. Mark cracked it open, scanning the back street. His rusty blue pickup was parked a few feet away. "We're clear," he whispered. T. Larry nodded, and they dashed toward the truck. Mark slid into the driver's seat, while T. Larry climbed in beside him. He fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking slightly. Come on, come on." The engine roared to life. Just as he put it into gear, a sharp metallic sound echoed behind them. Mark's stomach dropped. The armored figures were at the alley entrance. "They saw us," he hissed. T. Larry's hand shot forward, gripping his arm. "Drive." Mark slammed his foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires screeching against the pavement. A blast of blue energy slammed into the ground behind them, leaving a scorch mark where they had just been. "What the hell was that?" Mark shouted. "Stun weapon," T. Larry replied. "If they hit us, we're done." Mark gritted his teeth and swerved onto the main road. The black vehicle behind them roared to life, its headlights flaring as it sped after them. "They're chasing us." "I know," Mark growled, gripping the wheel tighter. "I'm not blind." T. Larry twisted in her seat. "We need to lose them before they call for backup." Mark's mind raced. The city streets were crowded with early morning traffic. He could try to blend in, but the truck wasn't exactly subtle. Then an idea hit him. "There's a junkyard a few blocks from here," he said. "If we can get inside, we might be able to hide." T. Larry nodded. "Do it." Mark made a sharp turn, tires screeching as he sped toward the scrapyard. The black vehicle followed, gaining on them. Another blast of blue energy shot past, missing by inches. Mark swore, "They're not playing around." Larry's hands clenched. "If we don't stop them, they won't stop chasing us." Mark's jaw tightened. "Then let's make sure they can't follow." He yanked the wheel hard, sending the truck crashing through the rusted gate of the junkyard. Metal clanged and scattered as they sped inside. Rows of old, abandoned cars loomed around them like silent sentinels. "Get ready to jump out," Mark said. Larry looked at him. "What?" Mark slammed the brakes, sending the truck skidding sideways. The moment it stopped, he grabbed Larry's wrist and pulled her out. The black vehicle screeched to a halt at the entrance. The armored figures stepped out, weapons raised. Mark and Larry ran, weaving through the wreckage. "This way," Mark hissed, leading her toward a stack of cars. They crouched behind a rusted van, panting. Larry's eyes flickered with frustration. "We can't run forever." Mark nodded, scanning the area. Then his gaze landed on something. A pile of heavy car parts stacked haphazardly on a crane platform. A plan formed in his mind. "Larry," he whispered, "can you still do that energy trick you showed me earlier?" She frowned. "Yes, but..." He pointed at the crane. "I need you to hit that control panel over there." She followed his gaze, understanding dawning in her eyes. The hunters were getting closer. Larry took a deep breath, focused, and raised her hand. A pulse of shimmering energy shot forward, striking the control panel. The crane sputtered to life. A loud creak filled the air as the massive pile of car parts tipped over, crashing down onto the hunter's position. A cloud of dust and metal erupted as the wreckage buried their pursuers. Mark grabbed Larry's hand. "Move." They sprinted toward the back exit of the junkyard. As they ran, Mark glanced at her. That was close. Larry nodded, her expression unreadable. "It won't be the last time." Mark sighed. "Yeah, I figured." They had escaped for now, but the hunt was far from over. And deep down, Mark knew his life would never be the same again. Mark's heart was still pounding as he and Larry ran through the back exit of the junkyard. Behind them, the wreckage had buried their pursuers, but he knew it wouldn't stop them forever. Breathing heavily, he turned to Larry. "Where do we go now?" She glanced around, her silver eyes scanning the narrow alley they had entered. "Somewhere safe. We can't stay out in the open." Mark rubbed his forehead, trying to think. His entire life had been normal until today, and now he was running from armored soldiers with an alien woman at his side. Then it hit him, an old friend, someone who owed him a favor. "I know a place," he said, leading her forward. "But we have to move fast." Larry didn't argue. She followed closely as they weaved through side streets, avoiding crowded areas. Mark knew the city well. He had lived here for years, but now, every corner felt dangerous. Finally, after nearly 15 minutes of moving through alleys and back roads, they arrived at an old garage on the outskirts of town. The metal door was rusted, the sign above barely readable. Mark knocked twice, then 3 times quickly. He stepped back and waited. A moment later, a small panel in the door slid open, revealing a pair of sharp brown eyes. "What do you want?" a gruff voice asked. Mark sighed. "Eddie, open the door." "It's me." The eyes squinted. Then, with a heavy groan, the locks clicked, and the door swung open. Eddie, a man in his late 40s with grease-stained hands and an unshaven face, stared at them. "Mark, what the hell are you doing here?" His eyes moved to Larry, and he frowned. "And who's this?" "No time to explain," Mark said, stepping inside. "We need a place to hide." Eddie scratched his head. "You're in trouble, aren't you?" Mark nodded. "Big trouble." Mark looked at her with curious eyes. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. "How does it work?" he asked softly. Larry smiled faintly and continued. "On my planet, my people call it the bond. When I bond with someone, our energies mix. Your senses become sharper, your reflexes faster, and your mind opens to new ideas and knowledge. In a way, you become a part of me, and I become a part of you. This is a natural process for my kind, but it is also a rare gift that very few are allowed to share it. Mark shook his head slowly, trying to understand. So, if we do this bond, I will become stronger, he asked. T. Larry nodded. Yes, you will be more than you are now. You will have strength beyond normal human limits, and you will be able to see and sense things in a new light. However, it is not without risk. The process changes you in ways you cannot imagine, and it is not a choice I make lightly. Mark leaned forward. What kind of risks are we talking about? He questioned. T. Larry's eyes grew serious. Once the bond is complete, you will be marked by my energy. This means that any powerful force or enemy who seeks to control or destroy my kind will also see you as a threat. The Galactic Dominion, for example, has been hunting me because they fear what my people can do. If you accept my gift, you will share that burden. It is a heavy price to pay, but it is one that can also change the fate of many. The room fell silent for a few moments. Mark's mind raced with the idea of a life transformed by such a gift. He thought of his simple life, the familiar routine of work, and quiet nights at home. Yet, the thought of having new strength and senses, of being able to protect those he cared about, stirred something deep within him. And what happens to me if I choose to take this gift? He asked slowly. T. Larry reached out and gently touched his hand. The process begins with a close physical connection, she explained. I will place my hand on your chest, close to your heart. As our energies meet, you may feel a warmth and a strange tingling that spreads through your body. This is the beginning of the bond. Your body will start to change gradually. At first, you might notice small things, a sharper hearing, a keener sense of sight, or even a faster reaction time. Over time, these changes will grow, and you may develop abilities you never thought possible. Mark took a deep breath, remembering the moments when T. Larry had touched his arm before their escape. I saw that energy once, he recalled. It was like a pulse of light. T. Larry nodded. That is the power within me. It is the life force of my people. When we bond, that energy flows into you and awakens your hidden potential. As she spoke, Mark felt a mix of fear and excitement. The idea of becoming something more than human was both alluring and daunting. Why me? He asked. Why did you choose me to share your gift? T. Larry looked into his eyes with a gentle sincerity. I chose you because I saw in you a kind heart and a brave soul. Most humans are content with a simple life, but I sensed that you have the strength to rise above your limits. I believe that together, we can stand up to those who seek to control or harm us. You have the power to help not only yourself, but also your people. Mark's thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door of the storage room. Eddie's voice called out, Hey, you two, everything all right in there? The moment was broken, and for a moment Mark wondered if he had said too much. But T. Larry squeezed his hand reassuringly. We are fine, she said calmly. Once Eddie left, Mark turned his full attention back to T. Larry. I need to understand what I am getting into, he said, his voice quiet but determined. I have always lived a normal life, and now you are offering me a chance to be something more. But I also see the danger. If I take your gift, I will be marked. I will always be a target for those who hunt you. T. Larry nodded slowly. That is true. I do not make this offer lightly. The bond will bring you strength, but it also carries the weight of my past and the pursuit of my enemies. The Galactic Dominion will not rest until they find us both. But I promise you this, the power you gain can help protect not only yourself, but also those who care about you. It can give you the edge you need to fight back and to help others in need. Mark sat quietly, letting her words sink in. The room seemed to grow still as he weighed his options. Finally, he said, I want to do this. I want to know what I can become, even if it means facing danger. His voice was steady, and his eyes held a glimmer of resolve. A small smile touched T. Larry's lips. "I will show you how," she said softly. She stood up and moved closer, her presence filling the small space with a calm warmth. "When you are ready, place your hand on your chest and trust me. We will begin the bond slowly. I promise you, I will guide you through every step." Mark nodded slowly, feeling both nervous and excited. He reached up and placed his hand gently over his heart. T. Larry's hand followed, and as soon as their skin made contact, a warm light began to glow between them. The light was soft at first, like the glow of a candle in a dark room. It grew brighter and steadier, filling the space around them with a gentle energy. For several long moments, they stayed like that, connected by the bond. Mark felt a tingle that moved through his fingers and up his arm. His heart beat faster, and he sensed something awakening deep inside him, a strength that he had never known before. T. Larry's eyes shone with a mixture of relief and hope as she watched the change in him. In that quiet, dim room, with the distant sounds of a troubled world outside, the truth about the gift was clear. It was a chance to change, to grow, and to fight back against those who sought to bring darkness. For Mark, this was the beginning of a journey into the unknown, a journey that would test his courage and transform his very being. A deep warmth spread through Mark's body, like standing in sunlight after a long winter. His chest tingled where T. Larry's hand touched him, and a strange energy pulsed under his skin. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before. His senses sharpened. He could hear the faint buzzing of a flickering light bulb in the garage, the rustling of leaves outside, and even the rhythmic beat of T. Larry's heart. He gasped, "What's happening to me?" T. Larry pulled her hand back gently. The soft glow between them faded, but the feeling inside Mark remained. She studied his face carefully. "The bond has begun. Your body is adapting, unlocking hidden strength. It will take time, but soon you will see the full extent of the gift." Mark flexed his fingers. His body felt the same, yet different. He glanced at T. Larry, his mind racing with questions. What kind of changes will I go through? T. Larry sighed, choosing her words carefully. At first, it will be subtle. Your body will heal faster, your reflexes will improve, and your mind will work quicker. But as the bond strengthens, you will see beyond what humans normally see. You will sense danger before it happens. You will move with greater speed and force. In time, you may even control energy like I do. Mark rubbed his forehead, overwhelmed but fascinated. And the risks? You said this would make me a target. T. Larry's expression darkened. Yes, the Galactic Dominion will sense the energy inside you. They hunt my kind because they fear our potential. If they discover you carry my power, they will not stop until they capture or destroy you. Mark clenched his fists. His normal life was gone. He had already been running, hiding. But if the Dominion was after him, that meant only one thing: he had to fight. He looked at T. Larry and nodded. Then I need to be ready. How do I control this power? T. Larry smiled slightly. We will start now. She stepped back and raised her hand. A soft glow formed in her palm. Focus on the energy inside you. Close your eyes and listen to your body. Mark took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He focused. At first, he felt nothing. Then, a faint pulse, like a second heartbeat, echoed within him. It was warm, flowing through his veins like liquid fire. He inhaled sharply. I feel it, he whispered. T. Larry nodded. Good. Now try to move it. Let it flow toward your hands. Mark concentrated. The warmth responded, moving up his arms. He opened his eyes and saw a faint bluish glow around his fingers. He gasped, startled, and the light flickered out. T. Larry chuckled. It takes practice, but you have already taken your first step. Before Mark could say more, a loud noise outside made them both turn. The garage door rattled. Someone was outside. Eddie's voice called out in a hushed but urgent tone. Hey, we got company. Big guys, armored. I think they're looking for you too. T. Larry's expression hardened. They found us. Mark felt his heartbeat quicken. The Dominion had arrived. He had barely begun to understand his new abilities, and now he had to fight. T. Larry turned to him. We must leave. But if they are already here, we might not have a choice but to fight our way out. Mark took a deep breath. He was scared, but something inside him, something new, told him that running was no longer an option. He clenched his fists, feeling the energy stir once more. I'm ready, he said. T. Larry nodded. Then let's show them what a human can do. The garage door rattled again. Heavy footsteps echoed outside, growing louder by the second. Mark's heart pounded, but he wasn't the same man he had been before. He could feel the energy coursing through his body, sparking at his fingertips. This was his moment. T. Larry stood beside him, calm and focused. She raised a hand, and a faint golden light flickered around her. We cannot let them take us, Mark. Are you ready? Mark took a deep breath. I don't think I have a choice. Eddie, crouched near the side window, peeked out. 3 of them. Big guys in black armor. They'd got those weird-looking rifles. If we run, they'll shoot us down. T. Larry nodded. Then we fight. The door burst open with a loud crash. 3 armored Dominion soldiers stormed inside, their glowing weapons aimed directly at them. The lead soldier, a towering figure with a deep metallic voice, spoke. Surrender the exile, and we will let the human live. Mark clenched his fists, feeling the energy hum inside him. He stepped forward. Not happening. Before the soldier could react, Mark moved, faster than he ever thought possible. His reflexes had changed. His body felt lighter, stronger. He ducked under a plasma shot, rolled to the side, and instinctively swung his hand forward. A pulse of blue energy erupted from his palm, slamming into the nearest soldier's chest. The force sent the massive warrior flying backward, crashing into the garage wall. Mark's eyes widened in shock. I did that. T. Larry smiled. Yes, and you'll do more. The other 2 soldiers recovered quickly. One aimed at T. Larry and fired, but before the shot could hit, she raised her hand, creating a shimmering barrier of golden light. The energy blast bounced off harmlessly. Mark, still processing what he had done, didn't notice the second soldier rushing at him, until it was too late. The Dominion warrior swung his rifle like a club, aiming for Mark's head. But something inside Mark reacted before his brain could. His body twisted, dodging the attack with inhuman speed. His hand moved on instinct, gripping the soldier's arm and sending another shockwave of energy through him. The armored attacker screamed as he collapsed. Eddie whistled. Man, remind me never to mess with you. The last soldier, now alone, hesitated for a moment. He glanced at his fallen comrades, then at T. Larry. This is not over, he growled. Then he tapped something on his wrist, and in a flash of blue light, he vanished. Mark exhaled. His hands were shaking, his heart still racing. They'll be back, won't they? T. Larry nodded. Yes, but now they know the truth. You are not just a human anymore. You are something more. Eddie crossed his arms. Yeah, well, I say we get out of here before more of them show up. T. Larry agreed. We must move. The Dominion will not stop hunting us. Mark looked at her, then at his hands. He had changed in ways he never imagined. He wasn't just an ordinary guy anymore. He had power, strength, a purpose. As they stepped out into the night, the stars above seemed brighter. The world had shifted forever. But one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. The end, or the start of something greater.